Vince McMahon is going to destroy the world of wrestling. For years, he's been pushing his limits by forcing employees to do disturbing things and treating his wrestlers like garbage. For example, Vince decided to take Owen Hart's life and throw his legacy in the trash.
Owen Hart has tragically died from an accident here tonight.
Forcing his daughter into bizarre and incestuous situations while trying to cash in at every corner he takes. Vince McMahon needs to be exposed, so let's get into it. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, being an adult has its perks, like eating ice cream for dinner at any time. But it's not all fun and games. You have to do things like make doctor appointments, and for that, there's ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality, in-network doctors, choose the right one for your needs, and instantly book an appointment. With more than 100,000 healthcare providers across every specialty, you can find the right doctor who takes your insurance, is nearby, and fits your needs. Plus, ZocDoc appointments happen fast, often within just 24 to 72 hours. You can even get same-day appointments. Visit ZocDoc.com/Sloan to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/Sloan. Thank you, ZocDoc, and enjoy this episode. We're going to be talking about a man that should have been exposed a long time ago. His name is Vince McMahon, and he is a big time in the professional wrestling world. He's actually the CEO of WWE. Vince first got involved back in 1982 when he bought the World Wrestling Federation from his father and revolutionized the industry by creating WrestleMania, one of the most successful wrestling events globally, but eventually acquired both WCW and ECW, solidifying its dominance in the industry. Now, Vince loves this work and he's put himself everywhere, whether it's into bodybuilding, American football, wrestling of every kind. Vince loves to have his face everywhere, which is part of his downfall. Let's talk about how Vince is under federal investigation surrounding a trafficking allegation. And it's more than just one allegation. It's an entire operation. Now, Janelle Grant, a former WWE employee, filed a lawsuit against Vince and the former WWE executive, John, claiming that she was the victim of physical and emotional abuse and assault and trafficking at WWE, which are some pretty major claims. In her claim, Janelle depicts herself as down on her luck and suffering from grief when she met Vince. According to the lawsuit, her parents had recently passed away and she was trying to find work when a friend recommended that she reached out to Vince for advice. Like a lot of powerful people do in the industry, they will use their power and tell people who, they have, more status than, that they could make them more important. They could open opportunities for them. They will promise them careers. We've seen music executives promise young girls careers just so that they could entertain them. Well, Vince used his power the same way in this situation. Vince actually dangled career-making and life-changing promises in front of Janelle. During several meetings that were about potential jobs at WWE, he greeted her in his underwear, touched her, and repeatedly asked for hugs. He expected Janelle to hang out with him and spend hours just talking about personal life, which she could care less about. Vince actually warned Janelle to keep their closeness a secret so that they didn't have any rumors going around in the public because Vince is actually married. But in their first meeting, Vince allegedly shared intimate details about his life, including current family dynamics, including his separation from his wife that he had been going through, his traumatic childhood, and growing up in poverty. He told Janelle, who was vulnerable at this time, that he didn't just want to give her a job. He wanted to give her a new life, and he was making some pretty big promises. Here's a snippet from a legal document. When Vince pushed Janelle for a physical relationship in return for a long-promised employment at WWE, she felt trapped in an impossible situation, submitting to Vince's sexual demands or facing ruin. Janelle feared that she had everything to lose and faced negative consequences no matter what happened. After Janelle succumbed to his wishes, she was hired as an administrator coordinator. She began working for him in 2019, so honestly not even that long ago. Despite Janelle's expressions of unhappiness and attempts to end the sexual relationship, and while she came to understand that Vince expected the physical relationship to continue as part of her employment, she had no idea how toxic it would become, nor the psychological torture and physical violence that would leave her feeling helpless, isolated, and trapped. Now, in March 2020, Vince began sharing inappropriate photos and videos of Janelle with other men both inside and outside the company, including members of the television production team, the tech team, the executive producers, and world-famous athlete and former heavyweight champion. So really, he got these nudes of her, these videos that he took of her, and he's showing them off in the workplace, which is so toxic. This girl probably feels so uncomfortable knowing everyone around her has seen her naked and hooking up with the boss. Vince actually told Janelle at one point that he shared the content with a referee that had worked there, and he allowed him to jerk it to the content, and that he was very happy, which is so gross. Now, the lawsuit claims the relationship shifted into trafficking in 2020 when Vince allegedly pressured Janelle into threesomes with other men, including other executives who worked there at the office. So this guy Vince was kind of a creep. I mean, he wanted to hook up with the bosses, his employees. He's just all around gross. At one point, Vince was actually instructing Janelle to go to these other executives' offices at the beginning of the workday to go and please them and then go about her normal date. So really, she was just responsible for being his property, almost. Like, he treated her like that, and the rest of the companies. He expected her to engage in sexual activity at their headquarters even during working hours. The lawsuit also claims that Vince used Janelle as a sexual pawn to entice an unnamed WWE wrestler. In December 2021, Vince gave Janelle's personal cell phone number to a WWE superstar and promised that she'll do anything requested of her. In the days followed, WWE superstar revealed a fetish to Janelle and tested Vince's promise that Janelle would do anything, with a request that she send a video of herself peeing, and Janelle said that she obeyed to avoid further interactions with this man. Now, this other executive, John, he was just as bad to Janelle. He would actually call her into his office, lock the door, unzip his pants, and instruct her to perform on him. But Vince was really the ringleader here. I mean, he really messed with her mind as well, calling her baby, calling her his love, calling her a B word, telling her that she's nothing, just completely degrading her. Here's a snippet from the lawsuit that Vince also subjected Janelle to acts of extreme cruelty and degradation that caused Janelle to dissociate or become numb to reality in order to survive the horrific encounters. Trigger warning, guys. I mean, this whole video needs a trigger warning, but at one point during a threesome, Vince commanded her to continue pleasuring his friend with feces in her hair and running down her back, while Vince went to the bathroom to shower off. Upon his return from the bathroom, Vince and his friend actively resumed the three-way, which lasted over an hour and a half, while Janelle remained covered in Vince's filth. When Vince's friend left, Vince ordered her to stay and to continue to please him. In 2021, Vince and John harmed Janelle inside of John's office at the WWE headquarters while colleagues were busy at their desks. Behind a locked door, the two men cornered her and pulled her in between them, forcibly touched her before ultimately putting her on top of the table between them. She begged them to stop, but they forced herself on her, each taking turns restraining her for each other while she was saying no. And they were saying no means yes, and to take it, B word. Wow, this is horrific. Here's a text message that Vince sent to Janelle, writing, "I love it. That's you, Janelle. You just can't get enough, can you? In the future, it's going to be so bad that you'll demand to be effed twice a day and not just with a three-way. Why not let others see the beautiful, voluptuous body and watch you shake uncontrollably when you finish? They will go out of their minds. Then I'll find more friends and will tie you up. You're so helpless. I'll direct them to have their way any way they want. Who can make you scream the loudest? Maybe this guy's a sicko. Maybe I'll just line them up and have them squirt in your mouth, your body parts." Okay, this is inappropriate. So really, he's completely objectifying her, fetishizing her, and she hates every moment of it. I mean, he's just like using her as a little toy. I can't even really read some of these other text messages that we have because they are so inappropriate. Talking about just multiple men harming her and doing things to her. And honestly, I'm like getting lightheaded just reading them because they're just so gross. I can't imagine being in her position. I would be frightened for my life. Now, in January 2022, Vince told Janelle that his wife had found out about their relationship, purportedly to avoid divorce, negative publicity, and other repercussions. Vince said that Janelle's time at WWE was at an end, and he wanted her to sign an NDA. In the days ahead, Vince put Janelle under immense pressure to sign, saying that refusing would not only jeopardize Vince and his family and the company, but she would surely become a public headline. Ultimately, Janelle succumbed to the pressure and signed the NDA in exchange for payments, in which which Vince stopped making. So NDA's up. So now that Janelle has been able to tell her story, Vince and WWE have to explain themselves. But it's not Vince's first time getting into trouble. In 1992, Rita Chatterton, the first female referee in the company, accused Vince of R-wording her. Though he has denied the allegation, he had reached a settlement with her last year. The lawsuit raises questions about Vince's behavior as well as management at WWE. I mean, do we want the entire company to fall because of him and his creepy friend John? In 2022, Vince stepped back as CEO at WWE while the company investigated him for alleged misconduct. There were claims that he paid hush money to a worker whom he had allegedly had an affair with. Sounds like Janelle. According to a 2022 report, he agreed to pay more than $12 million to 4 women. According to the Wall Street Journal, Janelle is one of 5 women who are cooperating with the federal investigation, including several other women who claim that Vince had put himself onto them, forced himself, and took advantage of them. One thing I found super creepy that Janelle exposed was that when he was using certain toys, like a black dildo or a white dildo, on Janelle, he would name them after his wrestlers. Like if it was a black dildo, he would name it after one of his black wrestlers. Same with the white. So he had a creepy fetishized like fantasy of his like wrestlers doing things to this woman. And he has a weird relationship with these wrestlers in general. At one point, he got into trouble because of steroid use. You guys know these are big, bulky wrestling guys, which takes a lot of work to get that humanly big. I mean, it takes a lot, including sometimes enhancements like steroids. The link between steroids and professional wrestling reached a turning point in the early 1990s when Vince was indicted by the U.S. Department of Justice on illegal activity related to steroids. It was thought that he not only actively encouraged use for wrestlers, but he also provided access to them. He was charged by U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York with obtaining these steroids and giving them to his employees. He had a shady doctor in Pennsylvania who would supply him with the drugs. The trial actually worked in Vince's favor because it was super messy with all their evidence. Also, at this point, Vince is super powerful, so he's got people like Hulk Hogan and other players who are going to vouch for him. And while he did get away legally, the 1994 steroid scandal threatened to put an end to Vince and his WWE empire. The trial included testimonies from many top wrestlers, but Hulk Hogan was by far the biggest name to feature in this case. Now, one employee named Kevin testified that Vince did pressure him to take steroids, but Vince wasn't a great witness because he had engaged in an altercation with Vince behind stage, and I guess Kevin, claimed that Vince had assaulted him. So they just kind of painted Kevin as a disgruntled employee. Now, as I said, he was acquitted, but there's been other conspiracies and scandals, like one involving a possible murder.
Hey everyone, you know, sometimes being an adult feels like playing a never-ending game of catch-up. One day you're winning, the next you're swamped with tasks like making doctor appointments. Thankfully, there's ZocDoc to make that part of adulting much easier. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors, choose the right one for your needs, and click to instantly book an appointment. We're talking about in-network appointments with more than 100,000 healthcare providers across every specialty, from mental health to dental health, eye care to skin care, and much more. You can filter for doctors who take your insurance, are located nearby, fit any medical need you may have, and are highly rated by verified patients. Plus, you can see their appointment openings, choose a time that works best for you, and click to instantly book. ZocDoc appointments happen fast, typically within just 24 to 72 hours of booking. So stop putting off those doctor appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/Sloan to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/Sloan. Thank you, ZocDoc, and enjoy this episode.
One of the biggest tragedies to ever happen in the WWE was when wrestler Owen Hart died during a live pay-per-view event in 1999. He was dressed as his character Blue Blazer, and he was supposed to descend from the arena rafters into the ring prior to his match. But as he attempted the stunt, a configuration error led to his harness disengaging early and Hart falling more than 21 meters into the ring. So this man was supposed to drop down from the ceiling, but then he dropped way too early, I guess, way too early, and fell and died. And that's Vince's fault. So he fell almost 8 stories to the ring, and he landed on his back on the mat. Owen's injuries were fatal, with reports indicating that he impacted and severed his aorta, leading to his death within minutes. The wrestling community was absolutely shook at his loss and probably really terrified to do things like that ever again. Now, the incident wasn't viewed on live TV, it was pre-recorded. When the broadcasters returned, commentators Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler were left to inform viewers of what had happened. However, later in the show, it was announced that he had died from his injuries. Rather than cancel the show after some delay, Vince decided to continue. Afterwards, there was strong criticism for allowing the stunt to happen in the first place and then going forward with the live event. Like, I would be so traumatized by what had happened, I would just cancel everything. But Vince just sees these men like Janelle as disposable.
Tragedy befell the World Wrestling Federation and all of us. Owen Hart was set to make an entrance from the ceiling, and he fell from the ceiling. And I have the unfortunate responsibility to let everyone know that Owen Hart has died. Owen Hart has tragically died from that accident here tonight.
That is so freaky to think about. They're just like casually announcing this. An entire arena just had watched a man die, and everyone's just like going on and cheering like nothing happened. Now, Owen Hart's wife, who's now a widow, Martha, said in an interview, after he lost his fight for life, they just scooped him up and ordered the next match out. Where is humanity? Would he have wanted the show to go on? Absolutely not. The circumstances of Owen Hart's death sparked various conspiracies. Some fans and theorists have speculated about the nature of his accident, questioning if there was more to his tragic fall than mere equipment malfunctions. However, official reports and accounts confirm the incident was a result of the harness failing. Here's a clip of Vince talking about this incident and trying to defend himself.
No, I resent your tone, lady, okay?
Why
You know, this was a
would there
tragic
not be
accident. It's a tragic accident. Don't try and put yourself in the spotlight here, okay? This
were your
was an
precautionary
accident.
measures,
Do you
sir?
understand what I'm saying? An
What were your
accident.
precautionary measures, sir?
And everything that should have taken place in terms of rigging, to our knowledge at this moment, did take place. It was rehearsed in the afternoon, and everything was fine. And that's all I know.
So, of course, Vince isn't going to take any accountability or accept any wrongdoing for what had happened to Owen Hart. But there is a theory here because Owen had just broken the neck of one of Vince's favorite wrestlers. And some people feel that, Vince is trying to get back at Owen. And he thought maybe this drop would be a good way to do so. I don't know if he thought he would actually kill Owen Hart. Maybe he did. He does seem like really a crazy man. He would do this to someone. But I wonder if maybe this was his way of trying to get back at him, breaking the neck of his big star.
Owen Hart's fall was accidental, but many conspiracy theorists claim that Vince McMahon was behind Owen Hart's death and killed him on purpose. The conspiracy theory believes that the reasoning behind this is because Vince McMahon was bitter at Owen Hart for breaking the neck of his biggest star at the time, Stone Cold Steve Austin, during the peak of the Monday Night Wars with WCW.
The way the WWE acted after Owen Hart's death does make me wonder if Vince really was out to get him. They showed no sympathy for this man, no honoring, nothing. I mean, Martha Hart, his widow, was vocal about the treatment that WWE had put her through, saying that nobody gave her any personal condolences. She talked to lawyers about, relocation things and where she's gonna go now that her husband is gone. Martha actually expressed her reluctance to see Owen Hart inducted into the Hall of Fame due to WWE's handling of the situation and lack of honoring him over the years. They just really discarded him and acted like this did not happen because they probably didn't want to make this scandal bigger than it really was. I mean, someone died in an arena of hundreds of people watching. That's just really not okay. Now, of course, Owen Hart's wife, Martha, did sue WWE for wrongful death, but Vince decided to countersue her and try to deflect responsibility for the death.
Martha Hart files a lawsuit against WWE, Vince McMahon, the manufacturers of the harness, and the riggers who set up the stunt, the goal being to get justice and accountability for Owen Hart. This begins a long uphill battle for Martha. In response, Vince McMahon wants to move the lawsuit to Connecticut, where WWE's headquarters are located. The reason is because in Connecticut, there are no punitive damages awarded, unlike in Kansas City, where Martha had filed the lawsuit. This causes McMahon to sue Martha Hart on the grounds that Owen Hart, like all other WWE wrestlers, had in his contract that WWE could only be sued in Connecticut.
I mean, how evil can this man get? He not only is trying to, not pay Martha because he, I guess, doesn't feel like she's owed anything, but he's trying to now switch the narrative and blame someone else. I mean, if Vince isn't going to hell for what he did to Janelle, he's going to go to hell for what he did to Owen Hart. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about him faking his own death. I mean, honestly, this seems like it would be the best way for him to get out of all this controversy. Headlines read, when Vince McMahon staged his own death in WWE. Yeah, you heard that right. Back in 2007, he thought he was the main character of everything. Vince was actually sitting in his limo that immediately exploded and was engulfed in flames. The entire episode that day was gloomy. Vince had lost his ECW title and was in the doldrums in WWE. The staff then decided to lift his spirits by organizing a Vince McMahon appreciation night. The only problem is that nobody appreciated him. So, in fact, quite a few different stars returned and took a collective crap all over the boss man, giving him a receipt for his treatment of them over the years. This left Vince walking out of the arena like a tortoise, passing everyone by the last time before reaching his limo, taking one last look behind and then climbing inside. When he shut the door, the limo exploded. Now, Vince wasn't dead, but WWE exploited him like he was. WWE.com quickly reported the incident as though it actually happened. This led to a few more folks to treat the storyline as legit, with some news outlets even reporting that Vince had died. WWE tried to act like this actually happened. They add tributes to Vince from wrestlers, and WWE personalities mourn his death. It was all in bad taste because the press was saying, who was watching The Sopranos last night? Because everyone tuned into WWE to watch Vince get blown up. Who could have done this? Like, our CEO is dead. In times for when people actually died, like Owen Hart and Eddie Guerrero, they didn't do anything. No memorial, no, tributes. But when Vince faked his death, everyone did the most.
Ladies and gentlemen, as you all may have heard, Mr. McMahon's limo exploded. It is presumed Mr. McMahon is deceased, and as a result, the SmackDown superstars are out here to pay their respects.
Now, the apparent plan for the conclusion of this storyline was for Vince to make a shocking return later in the summer to say he faked his own death with the help of an accomplice. He thought maybe when he returned with an accomplice, this accomplice could be the next big wrestling star. But this never came to fruition because the entire storyline was suddenly scrapped when reality turned out to be far more horrifying than fiction. The same day that Vince's memorial service show was scheduled to take place, with wrestlers even being instructed to wear black suits for the occasion, police found the body of Chris Benoit, who had committed suicide after killing his wife and son days before. Now, Chris was one of these wrestlers, so now his body's found the same day that Vince's memorial service is happening, and this guy had also harmed his family, so clearly he's not mentally well. WWE quickly canceled the memorial service that night and aired a tribute to Chris, which preceded by Vince admitting that his death was part of an ill-timed storyline.
Tonight's storyline was to have been the alleged demise of my character, Mr. McMahon. However, in reality, WWE superstar Chris Benoit, his wife Nancy, and their son Daniel are dead.
Many of the same wrestlers who were mourning Vince's fake death not long before were mourning Chris's actual death. However, they were unaware of the circumstances that Chris had taken out his wife and his child before he took out himself. Once they were alerted to as much, they quickly distanced themselves from the entire situation. In fact, when Vince and WWE learned more about what Chris had done, about, killing his wife and his baby, they decided they would never use his name again. And I guess the tribute was in bad timing as well. Now, a bow tie was put on the Vince death storyline by his explaining on August 6th episode of Raw that he faked his death simply to see what everyone thought of him. This quickly led into his next angle, which was that he had an illegitimate son and the mystery surrounding who it would turn out to be. And honestly, his storylines are getting so old. It's kind of why I think wrestling is so corny, because he creates these stupid storylines and he forced his employees to do really embarrassing things, which I think just made wrestling less and less serious. On many occasions, Vince made wrestlers put their faces in his butt. This was referred to as the Kiss My Ass Club. He would literally pull down his pants and force their face into his butt, which I'm not going to show because we don't want to get in trouble from YouTube, but we can blur it. You can imagine it. He'd also force female employees to do inappropriate skits with him and other male wrestlers for a good storyline. For example, he took it too far when he and a female wrestler were pretending to get intimate, but he kept getting interrupted. They finally got privacy, and once Vince got nude, he then acts like he's getting a BJ and then opens his eyes to see his wife, which is a little bit too real since this man is known for cheating on his wife.
Show Vince appeared with Tori Wilson backstage and questioned how badly she wanted to become a WWF superstar, and it became clear that Vince could make this happen provided Tori made love with him. Although despite several attempts, the two were continuously interrupted, first by Stone Cold whilst in the shower, then by Kurt Angle in a mop closet, and also by Perry Saturn in a bathroom. Vince and Tori then made their way to the laundry room where they finally had some privacy. Tori began to undress Vince and then asked him to close his eyes. McMahon obliged, only for a few seconds to pass before he opened his eyes again. And when he did, staring back at Vince was his wife Linda, looking on in disgust.
And I've got a big surprise for you.
So the storyline is weird, and I'm sure his wife was a little bit embarrassed. I mean, I would have been cringing. A former female wrestler named Sable actually sued him for taking his storylines too far. Sable was portrayed as a sex symbol by Vince and always wrote her storylines where she's found backstage making out with some male wrestler. He even wrote a script where she became his mistress and they made out many times. 1999, Sable quit and she filed a $110 million lawsuit against the company. They did allegations of harassment and unsafe working conditions. She alleges that WWE instructed her to expose her breasts and someone smeared feces on her personal belongings. Ew. She also says that male wrestlers punched holes into the walls between the men's and women's dressing rooms for a view of the female wrestlers. Ew. This lawsuit was very real, but Vince has a pattern where he countersues people, and he countersued her for control over her stage name. Later, Sable reduced the $110 million that she was looking in damages and ended it all when Sable and WWE settled out of court for an unknown amount, but it was probably much smaller than $100 million. But he didn't just push his limits with Sable, he pushed his limits with his own family, including his daughter, and it got a little bit creepy. Stephanie McMahon tied the knot with Triple H in 2003. When the billion-dollar princess became pregnant with the couple's first daughter 2 years later, her dad Vince suggested a storyline in which he would reveal himself to be the father of the child. This is something that Stephanie was not about, saying, "My dad did approach me about wanting to be the father of my baby in a storyline for TV," which again, only the second time I've ever actually said no to him for something he wanted to do. That was just a little too gross. Actually, it's completely disgusting. I don't find it entertaining at all. I can't fake kiss my dad like we were in love or something. It's just revolting. So Stephanie, of course, turned down her father's idea for this storyline, which would have revealed him as her father, which would have been really disgusting. Vince suggested another angle in which the father would instead be her brother Shane. So something still very incest vibes. Which, why is Vince like turned on by this? He said, then he came up with the idea of Shane to actually be the father of my baby, my brother. And I again just know that I know that sometimes that happens in the world, but it's not going to happen with us. I just can't do that. That's too much. Either way, Stephanie did give her father what he wanted because she started an online feud with her mother, Linda, of being jealous and threatened by her. She actually had to slap her mother in the face for this segment, and she tweeted about it saying that slapping her mother was one of the hardest things she ever had to do on television, disclosing that it made her nauseous. So why is Vince putting his family through this?
You're simply a conniving bitch.
What? That's her mother! Oh! Stephanie struck her mother down! Oh my God! Stephanie slapped her own mother! And look at Linda McMahon. She is brokenhearted. Linda McMahon is crushed.
It is just unreal. It is not okay. And Vince has done other things that are also weird, like pooping his pants in the ring, getting arrested in the ring, and almost killing a WWE writer while street racing. WWE has an incredibly toxic work culture, and it's not safe for anyone. I'm interested to see what happens to this company with someone like Vince leading it, but I want to hear what you guys think in the comments below, because everything in this story is so disturbing. I need to hear, what do you guys think? Like, what is your favorite part? Do you want a life update? Do we get a life update? I don't know. No, I'll save it. I'll save a life update. Ooh, there's a lot going on though. A lot to update you guys on. Ooh, I'm teasing you. Just kidding. Okay, I love you guys. Bye.